Hello, everybody. Welcome to My Psychic Connection. I am Skwirl, and I am so excited to be here tonight. I have been working on this project for years, and it's called the Mythology of Astrology. And on this series, every month, I am going to tell you the story behind the sun sign that is that month. So we started with Aquarius on the 21st of this month, and it will go till late evening, around 9:45 on the 18th of February. So for Aquarius season, I am going to tell you the story of Aquarius. So tonight we're not doing psychic readings, but I am going to tell you some really cool stuff about the mythology of astrology. And if you have any questions about what I'm asking about, feel free to type them in. And at the end of the story, we'll answer all those questions for you. So you guys ready? Now, one of the things I want to say before I get started is that mythology is pretty tricksy beast. It's like, you guys ever play telephone where in the same room you're all whispering, like you start out with one sentence, and by the time you whisper it down to 15, 20, 30 people, it's totally something different? Mythology is the same way, um, only through centuries and several different cultures and millions of people. So all of the stories that come from our ancient past, they have several different endings, they have several different names. They aren't always the same. So what I'm going to do tonight is tell you the ways I learned them. And if they're different from what you know, that's okay. It's still the same story. It's the essence of the story that we're after. And the essence of Aquarius is going to be here tonight. So without further ado, first we're going to start off in ancient Babylonia. Aquarius is one of the oldest sun signs that we have any record of. And here's how ancient Babylonia was. It was from 1894 BC to 539 BC. That's like almost 4,000 years ago. That's flipping old. So you know the stories have changed, and there's very little information that we have from Babylonia that's recorded record. So their view of Aquarius was not the same as the modern view, but this is where it all started. Aquarius was actually considered to be an unlucky sign to be born under. It was equated with the rainy season, which was about 45 days where nothing could grow, nothing could be harvested, everything was ruined. And this rainy season came with cyclones and monsoons and crazy weather. It was a really bad period of time each year. So when somebody was born in that season of Aquarius, they were kind of frowned on. They were kind of ostracized. And they were like, oh, that person's bad luck. Let's stay away from him. Aquarius is also related from Babylonian times with the Great Flood. And I find this so cool because the Great Flood is across so many cultures, and even in so many holy references. Even the Hopi Native American tribe here in the Americas knew about the Great Flood, and they were nowhere near a coast, but they knew. It's in their lore. It's like, this is something that obviously happened, maybe not on the scale that we see it in the holy writings, but this actually happened, and Aquarius was associated with it. So we're going to jump ahead because we have very little information except for that little bit. We're going to jump ahead to about 776 BC, and this is about 250 years after the Babylonians, when the Greeks came along. And the Greeks were from 776 BC to 323 BC. And they based a lot of their stories on what they knew of ancient, to them, Babylonian mythology. So the story of Aquarius is going to start right now with the Greeks. So there was a young man named Ganymede, and he was the son of Tros and Calero, and he was born in a place called Dardania, which was off the coast of Troy. And Ganymede, ah, he was beautiful inside and out. That child could not walk down the street with everybody turning around and going, ho ho, who is that beautiful child? Not only was he physically beautiful, like drop dead gorgeous, even from an infant stage, but as he grew, became a boy, and then became a teenager, he had this empathy, this compassion, this intellect. He could talk to anybody. He was so charming. And one of his charms was that when people spoke to him, he listened. Like he really and truly listened. He understood what they were saying when no one else could. And he was so willing to help. He was so willing to be there. Now, his father, Troyes, when he was young, he was the most beautiful child in all of the land. But he didn't have that inner beauty. It was just that physical thing. So when Ganymede started getting all this attention, people coming all over the world to see this amazing child, Tros got terribly jealous. He hated Ganymede. He made Ganymede's life hell. He beat him. He put him down. He abused him and ridiculed him every freaking chance he got. Tros, bad father, bad man altogether. Just physically beautiful, but inside he was rotten. So Ganymede, he would do whatever he can to get away from his dad sometimes, and he would volunteer for people who needed his help. So he would be off in the hospitals working and learning from the doctors. He would be off tending sheep for a sheep herder that needed to tend to a sick wife. He was always somewhere helping somebody. And word of him just spread throughout the world. Word of him got to a god named Zeus. Now, Zeus, if you don't know, is the king of gods. He was in charge of a place called Mount Olympus. Every god that existed at that time was answerable to Zeus. Zeus heard about this child, Ganymede. At the time, Ganymede was about 15 or 16. And Zeus was like, I need to see this child. I want to see if what everybody says is true. So he disguised himself and he went to Dardanus, and he looked around and he just saw average people. Nobody can be that beautiful. And he turned around and he saw Ganymede. And Zeus just stopped in his tracks. His heart just started racing, and he looked and he was like, oh myself, that child is beyond beautiful. And he followed him, and he saw how good Ganymede was, how beautiful he was to every single person who communicated to him. He followed Ganymede home, and he saw how Tros treated him. He's like, this ain't right. This is not right. That child belongs with me on Mount Olympus. But he couldn't just walk in and take the kid. It's like, even Zeus had some limitations. Now, he surpassed them a lot, but he respected the beauty of Ganymede so much, and how Ganymede, even though he was obviously being abused, loved and respected Tros. He was like, I got to figure this out. I'm going to get that kid. And he knew Tros wouldn't give him up, because then Who would he have to beat around? So he went back to Mount Olympus. He thought about it, and he knew. He said, aha, that kid's going to come to me. So Zeus had this beautiful giant eagle named Aquila. And he talked to Aquila, and he's petting Aquila's fur. And he said, you got to get me this child. You got to talk to him. You got to convince him that he belongs with us here, with the gods. Go ahead, get this human child, bring him home to me, and we will treat him like he deserves to be treated. So Aquila flew down, went to Dardania, and he landed. Ganymede was out tending to a flock of sheep. So when Aquila landed, the sheep kind of and all scattered away. But Ganymede had never seen anything beautiful. Of course, he looked in the mirror every day. And yes, the Greeks had mirrors. They're just different than ours. He would look in the mirror every day and wonder, what is this beauty that they speak of? Because he couldn't understand what made him different. But when he saw Aquila, this beautiful, brilliant eagle, he fell to his knees like, wow, what are you? And Aquila said, I am the messenger of Zeus, and I am here to take you to your true home. Come with me. Zeus wants to meet you. Ganymede didn't even think twice. He was like so trusting and so sweet. And this bird was so beautiful. He just climbed onto Aquila's back and flew away. So about 5-6 days later, Tros notices his kid is gone. He's like, good riddance. But then he gets news. The gods have him. The gods have taken him. And Tros is like, I should have gotten something for that. I should be compensated. So he starts making this big to-do, wailing, pulling out his hair. My kid is gone. I can't find my kid. What has happened to my beautiful son Ganymede? Just totally hamming it up to get attention. And Zeus did notice. He's like, oh man, I do not want to bring this child back. But he's making a ruckus down there, and we've got to do something. Ganymede noticed too. Ganymede could see in the scrying table what was going on down on Earth. And he looked at Zeus and he said, oh, please, please, if I really do like it here, but if you're going to keep me here, please compensate my father well. He loves me. For the first time I can see, he loves me. And Zeus didn't have the heart to say, no, kid, he's just being a dick. He's just wanting to be compensated. Excuse me. So Zeus called Hermes, the god of intellect, to him. Hermes, you would know if you'd study astrology, as Mercury, but we're doing Greek right now. So he called Hermes and he said, go make a deal with this guy. See what you can do and compensate him well. But here are some of the finest horses from Mount Olympus, horses of the gods. Here is the best bottle of wine that is ever made on Olympus, nectar of the gods. And here's a little bit of gold if he holds out. Make sure that he is compensated and there's no trouble with us keeping Ganymede. Mercury was like, I got this. That's easy, because Mercury was a charmer as well. So he goes down to Dardania, Hermes, as you were, and he says, hey, Tros, let's make a deal. And Tros, man, bargained hard. He bargained hard. He was not going to let the gods get away from anything. He got all the horses, the finest stallions that humans had ever seen. He got the bottle of wine, the nectar of the gods, a mere human drinking nectar of the gods, and he got all the gold. And Hermes went back to Zeus like, wow, that man drove a hard bargain. But before Hermes left, Hermes reached out to shake his hand to seal the deal. And Tros shook his hand and he grinned, and then he spit on Hermes. And he said, I would have traded that little bastard for a cup of piss. I didn't want him. And he laughed, and Hermes was livid. So he went back to Zeus and he told him what happened. And while he was telling Zeus what happened, Zeus's wife Hera, the goddess of hearth and home, overheard. And she was like, mm-hmm. And she stored it. She's gonna, I can use that. Well, Ganymede got along really, really well in Mount Olympus. All the gods adored him. Hebe, a goddess named Hebe, who is Hera's daughter, was the cupbearer of the gods at the time. And she was about to get married to Hercules, a demigod that was partially the son of Zeus. So Hebe was going to get married to Hercules and be elevated to the goddess of youth and beauty. So they needed a new cupbearer in Mount Olympus. And everybody was like, Zeus, Ganymede, he's funny, he's beautiful, he's just make him the cupbearer. And Zeus was like, oh yeah, that'll make him feel like he's part of the family, and that will give him something to do that other than sit around and look pretty all day. So he made Ganymede the cupbearer, and he gave him this special power so that he could draw any liquid from Mount Olympus to his vase, so that any god that asked for anything, be it water, wine, Kool-Aid, they didn't have Kool-Aid back then, nectar, any drink, milk, Ganymede could call it to his vase, and he could serve them anything they wanted. Little bit of time went by, and Ganymede just really, he was so clever, he was so intelligent, compassionate, that great listener. All the gods began to fall in love with him. Another thing about Ganymede that the gods really liked was he was up for anything. That child loved sex. Didn't care who you were or what you were, he was going to go with you. And if you had something new to try, he was game. He was ready for anything. I think Ganymede was the first one that said, I love everybody and you're next. So they just fell in love with him. And he quickly became everybody's favorite, even though he was a human. Hera hated it. She hated that he had taken Hebe's place, and that Hebe was now in a different place, being a goddess and Hercules' wife. She hated that Ganymede became Zeus's favorite lover. Imagine being the wife of Zeus and the goddess of hearth and home, and being spurned for this beautiful young boy. She had a right to be angry. But even Hebe was like, Mom, he's all right. He didn't replace me. Um, Hebe loved Ganymede so much that she was the only goddess that could bestow eternal youth and beauty, or even recall youth and beauty to someone who was aged. So she bestowed that eternal youth and beauty on Ganymede so he'd never change. So she was like, that's not the reason you hate him. The reason you hate him is because he's Zeus's favorite lover. But Mom, Zeus has always taken other lovers. But Hera hated that. Can't blame her. So what she did next, not the best thing in the world, but I get it to some extent. But she got Ganymede cornered. She got him alone. And she said, you think you're special, don't you? And Ganymede was like, yes, I do. My dad loves me. The gods love me. I feel so loved, and I love everybody here. And yes, I feel special. She's like, you're nothing. You're a dog, a favorite cur. You are a piece of property, and you are nothing but a human. and nobody loves you. Ganymede was like, what's going on? Surely you're kidding. She's like, follow me. I got something to show you. So she took him to the scrying table and she showed him the past. And she showed him the haggling that went on when Hermes essentially bought Ganymede from his father for horses, wine, and gold. Ganymede just turned pure white. What? No, no. Hera, she just, you stupid boy. You're the favorite dog. You're property. You are nothing. And look at your father now. And she showed him the present of his father. And his father was there petting the finest stallion, kissing its nose, telling him he loved it. And then he said, I wish you were my son. Ganymede started shaking. And then he reached back and he screamed as loud as he could because he just found out his father didn't love him. He just found out that he was sold as property to the gods. And that's when Hera barred the door because she thought he would do something to get himself in trouble. But she didn't know the extent of his pain. Ganymede started shaking even harder, and he started calling all the liquids in Mount Olympus to him, and he just started hurling it down into the stables where his father was, just left and right. It didn't matter what it was. All the while, tears streaming down his face, screaming, I hate you! I hate you! I hate you! Why couldn't you love me? And he called even the rivers of Mount Olympus until all the horses were swirling. All of Dardania was just washed away, and that flood went into the whole world until the whole world was flooded, and he just kept hurling and kept throwing and kept screaming until almost everything was dead. Meanwhile, all the gods knew it was Ganymede because they saw the liquid coming from everywhere, but they could not get through the door. Hera was even trying to get the door open, but she was so stunned by Ganymede's wrath that she didn't know what to do, tears streaming down her face. And finally, Ganymede just ran out of tears, ran out of liquid, shaking, and he collapsed on the floor. And Hera was able to get the door open, tears running down her face. Please, Zeus, please don't hurt him. I didn't know that it would hurt him. I didn't know the extent of his pain. And Zeus just looked at her with anger in his eyes. And he shook his head and he said, I'm sorry, Hera. He has killed most of the human race. He's got to be punished. And he walked over to Ganymede, and Ganymede looked up at him and tried to smile. He said, I love you, Zeus. Zeus reached down and touched his hair and said, oh, I love you too. I love you so much. And he kissed Ganymede on the lips. And then he thrust his lightning bolt into Ganymede's heart. And he pulled Ganymede into his arm and sat down on the floor with him, just rocking him. I love you, boy. I love you. And all the gods, every single god on Mount Olympus came to tell Zeus a story about how Ganymede made their days brighter, how Ganymede loved them unconditionally, how much they would miss that beautiful, beautiful boy. And Zeus, oh, he wanted Ganymede back. But he didn't have the power to bring life back to a dead body. So he called Ganymede's soul to him, held it tight. And he went up into the heavens, and he sprinkled Ganymede into the constellation of Aquarius, so that all the gods could always look up and remember the beauty and the love that they felt from this beautiful, broken boy. And that is the Greek version of Aquarius. It's pretty horrible. So horrible that the Roman Republic, they existed from 509 BC to 27 BC. It's before the Roman Empire. These are the men that brutally conquered the world to create the Roman Empire. These were warriors. These were killers. And they heard the story of Ganymede and was like, no, man, that's harsh. No, we don't accept that. And they changed the story. So I'm not going to tell you the whole story again, but I will tell you how they changed it. And the Romans had a habit. They weren't very creative when it came to gods. They pretty much took the Greek gods and the Greek stories and just changed the names. But Ganymede remained the same. But in this story, in the Roman version, Tros loved his son. Tros adored him. And he let Ganymede go because it was a good opportunity for him. And while Ganymede was in Mount Olympus, Dardania was called to war. The War of Troy happened. And I know y'all have heard of Helen of Troy. This was that war. It was a 10-year siege where the Greeks went after Troy to get Helen back. Okay, so she was the daughter of the king of Sparta and Leda, and she was also she was more the daughter of Zeus, because Zeus took Leda against her will, and she had twins. And the king of Sparta's daughter was human, but Helen was a demigod. She was half god since she was Zeus's kin. So all during this siege, Zeus really, really couldn't do anything against Troy because Helen was in the city. But Dardania, being called to help Troy, was being ravaged. The siege lasted 10 years. There were droughts, there were deaths, and then the Greeks started setting fires everywhere. It was horrible. They just like going into people's home in Dardania because it wasn't as protected as Troy, and just killing people where they slept, where they ate. And one day Ganymede was walking by the scrying table, and he's like, I wonder what's going on at home, because nobody had the heart to tell him that his people were dying like by the thousands every day. And he opened up the scrying table and he saw the fires. He saw the drought. He saw the deaths. He saw somebody grab his mother by the hair and slit her throat. And he just freaked out. Who wouldn't? And he started crying. He started crying into the scrying table, and his tears reached the earth. They reached Dardania, and he realized that he could put the fires out. So he sat there trying to save his people. Please, please let me save my people. Again, pulling all of the waters from Mount Olympus to him, all of the liquids to save his people, begging that they be saved. And he pulled so much liquid from Mount Olympus that it ran dry. And then he cried and cried. We're talking days, to where his body became so dehydrated that it could no longer support life. And he collapsed and he died. Same effect on the gods. They were heartbroken. They didn't want him to know what was going on with his people. But by keeping it from him, they essentially killed him, because he didn't know any other way to act. If the gods couldn't save his people, by golly, he was gonna. Now Zeus waited until the siege of Troy was ended. He did not want Ganymede to ever know that his people all perished in Troy, in Dardania, all around that countryside. But after the war, and after the people recuperated, those who survived, that's when he took Ganymede up to the sky and put him in the stars with the Amorpha, with the water, so that he could always watch over his people and send the rains whenever they needed it. So the Romans could not stand the brutality of the Greek version, and that's something else. But that is where we get rebelliousness for Aquarius and humanitarians. Two sides of the same coin, and that is the story of Aquarius. All right, Journey. Do we have any questions?
All right. So let's see. We were getting a lot of reaction from from the audience talking about how incredible the story was, and wow, that was amazing. How both versions are just so sad. And Audrey's still trying to figure out what happened, honey. We're talking about the story of Aquarius from the Greek and the Roman version of it, and how the sign of Aquarius became the water bearer.
Yes.
And you'll be able to go back and watch them play this back on our YouTube channel. But did anybody have any questions that they would like to ask about the story? Because this includes the flood of the earth, in which we were all told about. And so this, when we hear about the flood, we also think of Noah's Ark.
Yes.
So this also shows that he was notified. God did notify someone while this was going on to save what he had. He had created man, so he was trying to protect man by giving someone information. Because
even the ancient Babylonians had their own version, and it wasn't Noah, but I can't remember the names right off the bat, but they had their own version of the two people that survived the flood and repopulated the world.
Justin said, "Great story. You tell it so well."
Thank you, Justin. Oh, good to see you. Hi.
And Cassidy says, "Fascinating." Let me just start posting these so everybody can see. Fascinating. So many people think Aquarius is a water sign, right?
For so many reasons, because the water bearer, and then the actual glyph of Aquarius looks like waves, and then the whole story about the Great Flood being tied in too. But I think the Aquarius is more to his intellect and his listening skills and his ability to communicate with people so well on their level, every single one of them. It's more about the beauty of his mind.
Oh, absolutely. And then the way that Aquarius wasn't capable of seeing their own beauty. I know a lot of Aquariuses that do that. So that goes along with your story, is that they can't see their own beauty, but everybody else can.
Yes, yes. And it's really, I love that you pointed that out. Aquarians, too, they just have that natural ability to be unique. There's a very incredible uniqueness to them, but it's not quite tied to the ego, like, say, Leo uniqueness. So,
Right.
and there are good sides and bad sides to every sign. And I love how Aquarius, Audrey says, I thought it was a water sign. A lot of people do, Audrey. But Aquarius is one of the few stories that shows both sides because of the two versions and how the Romans changed it. It shows both sides of the how Aquarius can come that rebelliousness, that humanitarian, that loving side, and that really, really temperamental side that you never want to see in an Aquarius.
Right, right. But there is a good and a bad side to every side.
Yes, yes,
And Aquarius is uh, a sign, like Audrey said, I thought it was a water sign because he's a water bearer. But remember how he took, and this is what I got from your story, how he took the water he lifted it with the air. So he was
yes.
lifting it in the air. So it is letting you know. So in there, it's like a subliminal message. Through the air, did he take the water and then drop it back down on the people who he was he wanted to punish God, he wanted to punish his father, he wanted to punish the people, he wanted to, so there was a lot there.
It's
And
a poor Ganymede. Yeah. Cassidy has a great question. She says, as a professional astrologer, and you mentioned the rebellious humanitarian aspect, are there any other key points from the story that you find as typical characteristics from the Sun Aquarius people? Now, believe it or not, Aquarians, the sign of Aquarius is known for its sexual exploration. And
mm-hmm.
unless there is some Capricorn or Virgo or Taurus are signs holding them back. Aquarius can be very, very sexually adventurous, and Ganymede had that, and that's actually an attribute that's given to Aquarius. Also, just the intellect and the ability to understand people, and that's a sign of a healthy Aquarius. Unhealthy Aquarius will be opinionated. Don't confuse me with the facts. But a healthy Aquarius will listen to everything and take everything into consideration before they make up their minds.
Well, I've seen with Aquarians where you were talking about that love, that energy, um, that fun side, and that's the side you're talking about when it comes to the good side of things. And Cassidy said, "Wow, that's so interesting." Audrey also was like, "Wow, wow, wow."
We can all use a little bit of Aquarius in us, either way, right?
Yes. So this is also a way where Aquarians get their passion when they become passionate. They're very protective of family, friends, and things of that nature until they have to release the reins.
Yes. And another thing is like modern astrology especially shows the Aquarians as those ice princesses, those people who keep you at arm's length. And they actually are. It takes a bit to get past the barriers that an Aquarius puts up. And Aquarius can come across at first sight or first blush as being cold or
Mm-hmm.
removed. And they're not. They're truly not. Once you get past those barriers, but Ganymede had no barriers. It
Right.
could be the collective memory of the story of how Ganymede was abused and left out of the loop that causes that. And another thing, it went in my head and then it went out of my head.
Forgot about that.
Aquarian, most Aquarians that I know, my son included, feel alien to the rest of the world as if they are other, like they don't quite fit in anywhere. A great many Aquarians feel that. Like they're just not like other people. And it's not that, oh, I'm better than everyone else. It's like, what's wrong with me? Why am I different? And that is exactly what happened with Ganymede. He wasn't accepted by his own father. And he was told by Hera, you are not accepted by the gods. Nobody loves you.
Wow.
Yeah.
And Kelly says, "Are there characteristics different from the sun or moon in Aquarius?"
They just manifest differently because the sun would be your core self, the way you express things. Um, and your moon is your deepest needs, your subconscious instincts that just kind of like bloop, you have these instincts. Like, where did that come from? Things that you need to feel human. So, an Aquarius sun, that Aquarius kind of shines through a lot through how they express themselves, how they move, how they appear, where the moon will be, I need this kind of communication. I need this love. I need this to survive. So you see
Right.
the difference? One is just part of everything you do, the other is everything you need.
Wow. And Cassidy says, but I want to be an ice queen though. Let it go. Let it go. Audrey says, my most headstrong daughter is Aquarius. And yes, Skwirl, that is how she feels.
And headstrong, okay, Aquarius is what's called fixed air. Fixed anything is stubborn. Stubborn. So, yeah, headstrong and stubborn, Aquarius can definitely come across that way. Um, not all of us, none of us has all the good qualities or all the bad qualities of any sign. Most of us are middle of the road until we're in a situation where those good qualities or those bad qualities shine through. Does that make sense?
It does. And she said yes. So each sign are more compatible with certain signs. So we've got these signs that are more compatible. Um, would you possibly know if what sign that Aquarius would be more compatible with, and then maybe possibly a sign that they're least compatible with?
All right, so just sun sign to sun sign.
Correct.
I could tell you, but it goes way, way deeper than that with the whole charts. But if it's pure Aquarius, um, it will most likely get along with other fire signs, except for one, and air signs. So the best signs for it, what's called a trine, which is the most positive aspect, the best signs for an Aquarius would be Libra or Gemini. Now, that may be too much because that's all communication. And a lot of times, if you get an Aquarius and a Gemini in the same room, neither one of them is going to get a word in edgewise, but they've got the biggest spark. Aquarius to Gemini or Libra. And then they're also good with Sagittarius and Aries, but they are in opposition, what's called opposition to Leos. So Leo could be a challenge for them. Now, if they're ready to meet that challenge, Leo and Aquarius can be the best thing for each other because they can only learn and grow. But a lot of people, it's like, that's too much work. But if you're willing to put in the work, a Leo can truly help an Aquarius grow, and an Aquarius can do the same for a Leo.
Yeah. Um, Audrey was saying, I don't know what her man's birthday is. It was last month. I've seen her be happy with no with no their guy. No, I'm sure that's no other
Okay.
guy.
So depending on when in January, he would have been early January would have been Sagittarius, late January would have been Capricorn.
Cassidy says, "I love my Leo
Yeah,
man."
and he challenges you, and you learn from him every day. But as I was saying earlier, it's not just sun to sun. It could be, Audrey, that his moon is in her sun. He may have that Aquarius moon. And anytime the man's moon is in the woman's sun, there's a really excellent chemistry and communication. That's long term stuff. But there could also be other factors in his chart. There's all kinds of stuff going on in there. And it doesn't matter if it's like Aquarius to Capricorn, we're just talking sun to sun. But when you go diving deeper into it, it can get intense. And there's all like so many working parts. So it could be other things about his chart that really light her up and vice versa. But it's very possible that he has an Aquarius moon.
Now, we are living in what people are calling the age of Aquarius right now. And so, how long would these ages last? What are the, if by chance you know, the cycles? Um, if I remember correctly, if I remember, now, mind you, I'm still looking into all this stuff, but I think it's about 200 years.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a couple centuries.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, we're stuck here.
So our great great grandchildren will be able to see the
The age of Pisces.
yeah, the age of Pisces. Right now, we are living in the age of Aquarius. Uh, could there be any lessons that we should be, or something that we should be looking out for when it comes to Aquarius itself?
Well, one thing that excites me about this being the age of Aquarius is like look at the technology boosts that we've had just in this century alone.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Aquarius is all about the global, about the other, about
Right.
different cultures, about groups of people coming together from all over the world. And this century we've gotten the internet. Is if that is an Aquarius, internet itself is very Gemini, but
Mm-hmm.
the ability to be able to get groups of people together at the touch of a button from, I mean, we've got people here from Australia, we've got people here from Austria, we've got people here from uh, England and South Africa and America
Mm-hmm.
and Canada. If that isn't Aquarius, it's like the age of Aquarius is happening right in front of our eyes, making the world such a smaller place that we can communicate with people and see them as people and not something other than us. This is the best time for everybody to come together and see past our differences and understand each other. It really and truly is. Now, some things that we could look out for here is one thing that Aquarius can do is that humanitarian side of them in an unhealthy way can be brought to extremes. And that is what's going on about how we're allowed to talk and what we're allowed to say and what we're allowed to do. And people don't even know what words they're allowed to use anymore. And that is also what you're allowed to eat. Those humanitarian, the deep Aquarians, Kelly says, my Aquarius brother is stubborn as hell, LOL, and my granddaughter too. Yeah, they're stubborn. But that kind of Aquarian is heavy handed and fairly unhealthy, meddling, and they control, it's like you, even something stupid as candy bars going from this side to this side. They think we're too stupid to think for ourselves, and they want to regulate everything so that we don't hurt ourselves. But that bothers me. But I'm a Leo, so it would. Does
Yes.
that make sense? And Cassidy asked, does everyone have Aquarius in their chart somewhere? Yes, yes, they do. Now that, okay, there are 7 or 10 planets, depending on what kind of astrology you do. 7 classical planets and 3 new ones that have been discovered in this century, I believe. Um, or no, the last century. Somebody switched centuries on me, forgot to tell me.
Somebody forgot to tell you about the time that it was.
But whether you have a planet in a sign or not, you still have every single sign in your chart, and they each own different houses. So, yes, and that will affect you in some way in some area of life. Now, if it has a planet in there, in that sign, it's going to show up stronger. You're going to have instincts and drives and things that happen that somebody could say, oh wow, she's got some Aquarius in her. um but everybody has every sign somewhere in their chart, and there are ways to use it to your advantage, and there are ways to learn about how to overcome the challenges that it could bring you as well.
All right, guys. So don't mind the troll. They're gone. We've got troll be gone. So, but yeah, the energy that Aquarius brings can, if you use Aquarius correctly, and you can bring the positive signs in. But sometimes we can get into those feelings, just like Aquarius did for the story you were telling. When the emotion came, it rained. It,
Man, you never, ever, ever want an Aquarius mad at you.
no, no,
Because they usually got a good lock on their emotions. But when those emotions hit and they can't handle them and they get mad, holy mother of cows, it's fierce.
it is. It is, and I've seen, being readers, we've seen all the signs, and we've seen they're good, they're bad, they're middle, they're, there's many sides to it. Just like when we read, we see many sides of the tree, and this is how different readers can get different answers. And just like you've got the Romans that tell the story one way, you've got the Greeks that tell the story one way. It's not that either one of them are 100% right, nor are they 100% wrong, because the outcome is still the same.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and I love that the Romans did change it to that, because that change actually showed the beauty of Aquarius.
Right.
And where the Greek story actually showed, that bad to be born under that sign part. So, and no, there is no bad sign. There is not a single bad sign. Cassidy with her swords, her cross swords.
Kelly says, yes, you're so right. It's like an explosion.
And mean. And now every single sign can be mean, and each of them has a different way of attacking. But Aquarius attacks, mm, mm.
Audrey says, like, my Aquarius daughter is brutal. But that's because they're very open people, and it's the minute the heart hurts.
Yep. And then they just want you to hurt just as bad. And all this time they've been observing and storing
Mm-hmm.
information, and they know
Mm-hmm.
what you don't want to hear. And they go straight for the jugular vein. Yeah. Yeah.
Now, guys, this is one of many stories coming your way, so get ready for it, because once a month we are going to be in the time of the sign. We'll be doing another one, and I believe Pisces is next. Am I correct?
Yes. I love the story of Pisces too. That one's wild.
Yes. So get ready for that, guys. We'll be getting down to each and every one of these as we go through the year. Now, I know that there are 12 signs, so we are going to get to each one of those slowly. But, guys, I know that some of you, with some of the readings that you do, that would find out that there was a 13th sign that was taken away.
Actually, the way I learned it
Uh-huh.
was there were only 11 signs, and a 12th was added.
See, and I was taught that there was 12, and a 13th one was taken away.
Every 5 years or so,
Mhm.
we get that rumor that circulates about the 13th sign.
I always wondered about it.
It is a rumor. I'm sorry. And every 5 years or so, they kind of alternate. We get another one saying, "Oh, if you're a Leo, you're really a Virgo." Bullshit. It's
No,
bullshit.
I
Yeah.
thought the same thing when looking at that, and you got to take everything with a grain of salt. But
Yeah.
Justin says, "Thank you so much, Squirrel. I look forward to next month."
Thank you. I I look forward to it as well. Yes.
And this is what we were talking about with Skwirl and the astrology. She knows lots of information about astrology, an amazing astrologer. If you guys want to get a chart read, you can go to My Psychic Connection. She'll be more than happy to provide that information for you. So, guys, check her out at mypsychicconnection.com. And of course, she's got Whispers of the Forest on Wednesday for the West Coast and Thursday for the East Coast because she's in between. And so it's midnight for us on the East Coast and 9 p.m. on the West Coast. And Kelly said, I'm also a Leo Virgo cusp.
We'll talk about that. We'll talk about cusps another day. But if you were born when that cusp was saying you were born on the day of Virgo, you are a Virgo.
Audrey says, my Aquarius said the same, laugh out loud. That's if you were this now, you are this.
Oh, yeah. No, it's a rumor. And people just like to add excitement to something that's already excitement. They want to be seen as the new master of something that's been around for 1,000 years. And as far as the 13th sign is, there's one particular sign that did not exist, and it took me 2 years to find out because I kept looking for the story. What was it before this? What was it before this? Didn't exist. There were only 11. 2 years of research to finally find out what happened there. And I'll be telling y'all that story too. But that's the story.
I'm really excited to find out which one of these beautiful signs was not here but then added later. That also is something to do with, we had the years as well, that there was only 8 months.
Right.
They added months.
Right. So each sign for the longest time was between 35 and 45 days. And that rainy season of Aquarius lasted a good 45 days or more.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So, Audrey said, dang. I had to say it in Destiny K's voice. You gotta love it. Gotta love it.
Again, y'all, thank you so much for joining me tonight. I was very, very excited about this, and seeing y'all here made me less nervous.
Kelly said, wow. Audrey's laughing because we said it in Destiny's voice.
We got to do it together.
Dang.
Shout out to Destiny.
Yeah, shout out to Destiny, who will be on tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Eastern doing readings. So, guys, get ready for that. We will be doing these once a month, so you guys have a chance to learn about your sign, the history, the mythology, and the astrology behind it. It's going to be absolutely. And Skwirl, thank you so much for all this beautiful knowledge that you have.
Thank you for letting me share it on My Psychic Connection. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. And everybody, guys, remember, we're going to post this ahead of time. This one was a last minute decision to get it going really quickly. But guys, we've got plenty of time to set you guys up for the next one that's coming up. So guys, make sure you're checking our schedules. Make sure you're liking and subscribing to our YouTube channel. We are trying to build the YouTube channel up because we do have some other shows with interviews with some of our gifted practitioners from all around the world, from all walks of life, tarot card creators, authors. It's going to be beautiful.
Yeah.
It's going to be beautiful. And guys, don't forget to check out Whispers of the Forest Wednesday at midnight. Guys, it's a great show, along with Journey Ryan, Cassie the Card Slinger, and all the other psychics, Destiny K. We've got Deborah, we've got Gigi, we've got a lot of psychics here for you guys, and so many more coming. We cannot wait to introduce all these new, wonderful, beautiful people And Skwirl, thank you so much for this. This was beautiful.
Thank you.
All right,
Oh,
guys, we have come to the end of this show, but make sure you guys tune in next month when we're talking about Pisces. I cannot wait to hear Pisces. I think Pisces is the one that makes you a little emotional? No,
uh,
Gemini.
Gemini. Oh,
Gemini.
that's my favorite story, but I cannot. Aquarius and Gemini, I can't tell without crying.
Uh, it's beautiful, and you tell it well, and you give out
Thank
so much information. So, guys, get ready to get your questions ready when it comes to Pisces. That'll be next month when we go into the sign of Pisces, and she'll be telling that amazing story. I cannot wait. And, guys, that is the end of tonight's show. Again, Skwirl, thank you so much for being here. It was absolutely beautiful.
thank you.
All right. Well, from everyone here at My Psychic Connection, we want to say have a beautiful night. We'll see you tomorrow at 7 with Divine Love and Light with Destiny K at 7 p.m. Eastern. Until then, have a beautiful night. Bye.
Bye.